Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the live Q&A with me, Professor Michael Scott. It is wonderful to have you all here from around the world, gathering for this half hour of ancient world indulgence, in which I try to get to grips with some of the amazing questions that you have been sending in over the last couple of weeks. It's a great pleasure to have you with us, and we're trying a new time this week of 5 p.m. here in the UK to try and enable people from both the Far East in Australia and the Far West in California to be able to join us. So hopefully this time has worked well for everyone. Hopefully we've got our full geographical global spread of classics enthusiasts with us. Hello, Rebecca. Hello, Catherine. Thank you so much indeed for tuning in. So first off, the most important stuff, obviously, first up, classical bum competition. Best classical bum hashtag. Now, we've been running this on the Facebook page, inspired by some of the museums getting in on the act over the past couple of weeks and months with lockdown to find the best classical bum. Now that, as we said, very much only sculptures, ancient sculptures could be entered into this competition. Hello, Alexis. Hello, everyone. Hello, Anna. Thank you so much indeed for joining in. You're labelling up the school uniform, Alexis. We are doing that already as well. They kind of got a little one ready to start school in a week or so's time. Good luck to them. Hello, Karen from Miami. Thank you so much indeed for tuning in. So yes, hashtag best classical bum. Who won? Well, as you may have seen from the Facebook page, we had a clear victor who was the Capitoline Venus. Now, kind of obviously there's lots of these Venuses, Aphrodites hanging around. They all lead back to a sort of a prototype, if you like, which was the Aphrodite of Cnidos from the 4th century BC, the first time to show off a full life-size naked female statue in the ancient Greek world. This was the first attempt to do so. It was in fact a statue set up in a temple of Aphrodite, so it was the cult statue of the goddess that you were supposed to worship at. And indeed there are many stories relating back to the Aphrodite of Cnidos about things that people tried to do with this statue when they even spent the night in the temple, and I will leave your imaginations to run wild with that thought. But there is another alongside the Capitoline Venus, which is of course an excellent best bum. There's another of my personal favourites, which is Aphrodite Kallipyrgos. Now, Kallipyrgos translates as, pretty much loosely, lovely bum. So beautiful buttocks, Aphrodite of the beautiful buttocks, and this is a particular statue of Aphrodite that's sort of riffing, playing a joke on the Aphrodite of Cnidos and the Capitoline Venus, all of these kinds of statues in which she's naked and she's sort of holding her washing urn and clothes sort of in one hand. In the Aphrodite Kallipyrgos, she is, when you look at her from the front, clothed very normally. It's only when you go round the back of the statue that you realise that she's holding up the entire back of her dress to show off her bum. Absolutely brilliant work from you, Aphrodite. Hello, Jennifer from North Carolina. Thank you so much indeed for tuning in. So Aphrodite Kallipyrgos would also get my vote. And of course, if you were catching the Sicily series that went out recently in the UK, you'd know that I was really quite impressed on the best male classical bum front by the charioteer from Motia, who was clingy in a wet, clingy, long sort of t-shirt chariot driver's tunic thing with quite a spectacular bum as well. I ended up being very jealous. So thank you very much indeed for entering Best Classical Bums competition. And also, I wanted also to just comment on some of the brilliant things you guys have been sending in response to our question, what's your favourite thing that you've ever bought from a tourist shop at a tourist site or museum? Now, kind of, if you don't remember, I was talking about my time in Lebanon and how I sort of got kind of left in the predicament of whether I should buy a t-shirt that may or may not have led to me directly funding terrorism. Thankfully, it doesn't seem too many of you have had that predicament. I'm very glad to hear that. And instead, there is a very clear winner favourite for your favourite thing that you buy in the shops associated with classical sites and museums. It's a rubber duck, which I thoroughly approve of as well. Yes, so Flavia's been talking. Flavia actually has 2 tiny Roman metal soldiers that you take everywhere in your bag with you. Brilliant. They came from Spalato. But Catherine Lucas loves her Roman rubber duck from the British Museum. There's a lot of love out there for the Roman rubber ducks, the Zeus rubber duck, the Viking rubber duck, the Sphinx rubber duck. we did mention in one of these programs not too long ago that they don't do a Persian rubber duck. Where is your King Xerxes rubber duck or your King Darius rubber duck? These are the things that I am missing. Hello, Pablo from Costa Rica. Thank you so much indeed. Edmina from Salamina in Greece. Thank you so much indeed for tuning in. Brilliant to see you. So lots of love for the rubber ducks. Deborah Dix, on the other hand, got bronze replicas of the Riace warriors from Paestum at 1/2 metre tall. How you got those back in your suitcase, I have absolutely no idea, but that's brilliant. And then Sarah Alexander talking about a gladiator helmet on a keyring from the Colosseum. Nice, nice. I have a secret wish one day to buy one of the life-size Greek warrior hoplite helmets that you can buy in one of the shops around the base of the Acropolis in Athens and sort of maybe wear it at home occasionally, but I don't think I'll ever quite summon up the courage. Monique, you like your Centurion rubber duck. Benjamin Trussell, you got from Fishbourne Roman Palace a knitted figure of Togibdubnus, the local ruler who was supposed to have owned the palace in the 1st century AD. Brilliant. Love that that's a knitted figure. Christina Gobble, Roman terracotta oil lamp you got from the Colosseum. Hope you use that. A small replica of the winged victory of Samothrace. That sounds like a brilliant one as well. Latifa, you have an altar votive of Mary and Child from Winchester Cathedral that you love. Fantastic. And another Zeus rubber duck. That's a clear favourite. Then there are some... Well, again, if you've got young children listening, there seems to be a sort of thread here of the other sorts of things that people buy in these gift shops. If it's not rubber ducks, it's things in the shape of phalluses. Yes, so it would be your bottle opener, or it might be just a winged phallus from the stall at Pompeii, but Dave Midgley puts that on a very high shelf in the faculty office, hoping that the students don't see it. And then kind of otherwise we have some excellent silver productions of cloak fibulas, like little brooch pins from a museum in Romania. That's nice. And you wear it. Flavia wears it on her cloak. I think that's brilliant. And then some reproduction Roman coins from the Ulster Museum in Belfast. Philip Atwood. Brilliant. Love your selection, everyone. That's absolutely fantastic. Anyone comes up when we start to visit all these wonderful ancient sites again, if you do buy something from one of the shops, do share a picture with us to put on the Facebook page or share it on the Community Classics Facebook page as well, so that we can all see the fantastic stuff that you have decorating your home. I love having these things surrounding my home. I started buying little memorabilia from trips, particularly to Greece. The very first time I went to Greece when I was 17 years old, I'd lost my luggage on the plane on the way out. It just disappeared, never ever turned up. But I remember vividly going around the flea markets of Athens, buying a few very, very cheap knockoff sculptures, a bust of Socrates in particular, which I still have to this day, as well as a few other little mini sculptures that I treasure. So these things are important and absolutely, absolutely worthwhile. Brilliant. So we're going to get on with a couple of the fantastic questions that you guys have been sending in over the past week, and also that we didn't get to last week. And I wanted to start off with one of those because Catherine Ansie's 10-year-old nephew, whose name we still want to know, so Catherine, please let us know your nephew's name, asked about last time, and we answered this question: in ancient Rome, did kids go to school? And yes, we talked about how they did, depending on their wealth and whether or not their family could afford for them to go to school, or whether to have a private tutor come to the home, or whether in fact they had to just be homeschooled by their parents. But Catherine Nancy's nephew also asked about pets. Did Roman families, kids, have pets? And this is a great question. Yes, absolutely they did. So you could have lots of different types of pets. Cats were a pet. Now, and kind of when you think of Egypt, and cats are obviously sacred and very kind of mystical and magical, but we know that cats were pets in the Roman world. But also we hear an awful lot about caged birds. And this would be not just for children, but also lots of adults who would have caged birds that would twitter and tweet, etc., etc. And so that would be, and particularly the more exotic the bird you could have, obviously, the more impressive it was as a pet. But then you would also have dogs. Now, so just like today, you could have dogs that were supposed to be guard dogs, big, brutal, vicious guard dogs to keep out the nasty people outside, or you could have sort of more fluffy, pet dogs. And of course, the very famous phrase that we see all the time, particularly kind of if you do have a big guard dog at home, whether it's beware of the dog or of the Latin phrase, cave canem, that comes from kind of being seen in Pompeii, where it was actually written kind of at the entrance to a house to ensure that people knew that there was a guard dog inside. The house of the tragic poet from Pompeii has cave canem there, so it kind of dates back all the way to Rome, that guard dogs were biting the postman's hand and feet even then. Jane, today is International Dog Day. Who knew? Absolutely fantastic. International Dog Day. If you have a dog at home, give it a treat right now. Absolutely brilliant. Thank you indeed for sharing that. Who knew that there was such a thing as International Dog Day? Suddenly, International Caged Bird Day needs to be invented. And obviously, also at Pompeii, what we have seen, and you can see there when you visit, the plaster casts that were done when they were excavating of the individuals who died in the volcanic eruption of Vesuvius, Pompeii, and they would pour in plaster to fill up the space that had been left by the human body as it had decayed away. We also have plaster casts of pet dogs who died in the eruption, including one who very, very sadly seems to have been chained up and not able to escape. So kind of we see kind of dogs being part of the destruction in Pompeii as a result of Vesuvius as well. And then there's this other weird thing that seems to be that kids, particularly kids' pets, whether they were dogs or whether they were ponies also, could then be sacrificed to be buried with the child if for any very, very sad reason the child died at a young age. Now, we think we might see this in Greece as well. There's actually a large communal grave in Athens where when they discovered it, it's very, very central. It's sort of in the area of the Agora, and I think it dates to about the 3rd century BC. But it's a huge collection of, when they examined it, child bones and dog bones. Now, initially, they thought this might be some kind of example of actually child sacrifice happening in Athens, just like, in Sparta, supposedly children who weren't perfect for one reason or another were supposedly chucked off a cliff at birth. And when they examined the child bones, they realised that there were actually quite serious defects with most of these children, cleft palates, these sorts of things. But now actually the conclusive kind of long kind of research and study of the bones shows that these children probably were not sacrificed. They were dying of natural causes, of the problems, the physical problems they had, rather than being kind of killed off in any way. But it does seem that the dogs, potentially their pet dogs or family dogs, were then being sacrificed and buried with them, we think, as much as we can tell from the archaeological evidence. But we do also definitely see this happening in the Roman world as well. So, brilliant question about pets at home. Yes, there were a good selection of pets, although we don't seem to have too much evidence of people keeping sort of pet snakes and pet spiders and all these sorts of things, which I've never understood. I do not understand why you would want a tarantula as a pet, but I'm sure in some cases that they did. So thank you so much indeed for that absolutely brilliant question. We want to come now to Daniel J. Heinemann, who's saying good day from Mount Hothman in Australia. Lovely to see you. Hope that you're able to tune in with us right now. Love to know your take on the discovery of Troy by Heinrich Schliemann and thinking about Priam's treasure. Of course, many of us, if we were lucky enough in the UK, were able to get to the recent British Museum exhibition before lockdown about Troy, and they had a brilliant section there where you were sort of welcomed into this wooden surround, and you were surrounded by the different levels of the site we think is Troy from Homer's Iliad or modern-day Hisarlik, and the different levels of civilization and community that were built up on the same site. Now, if you've had the chance to actually go to the archaeological site itself, you will know it is one of the most confusing archaeological sites in the world to work out what you are looking at and from what period, because there were so many different communities built there on top of one another over time. But what Schliemann brilliantly did was realise that this was probably the site of Troy of Homer's Iliad, and to start digging there. Now, this was an era, of course, before the development of archaeology as a discipline, as a science, as an academic with academic rigour, and also lots of thought being put into techniques of excavation. So we can't really expect that from Schliemann in his day, although some of the ways in which he went about stuff, sort of bulldozing down through the early layers, promptly pulling this jewellery out of the ground, Priam's treasure, and putting it on his then wife and taking photos of it and saying, here is Queen Helen of Troy. All of this is very much curated by Schliemann's eye for publicity, and one thing he was absolutely brilliant at was capturing the imagination of the world for his discoveries, and kind of giving something to the world to sort of fixate on. And of course those images have become incredibly famous as a result ever since. Now lots more excavation and study has happened, of course, at Hassalik and Troy since then, so we have a better understanding of the different layers of the community, and we have a better understanding, we think, of kind of what might map onto when the Trojan War, if it probably happened around about 1250 BC, kind of who was facing off against what level of Troy then. So we've definitely moved on from Schliemann's time, but I don't think we can be too hard on him. So thank you, Daniel, for that question. Absolutely brilliant. Clive Pearson's also been asking, how do you feel that Hollywood has harmed the teaching of real ancient history? Thinking specifically about the movie Troy and Alexander. Well, this is I think really important. Hi, Patricia. Hi, Helen. Thank you, everyone, so much for tuning in. We have to balance this off always between the enormous power that Hollywood has to bring the ancient world to new audiences. People coming to see movies about this, getting interested, as a result potentially going off and maybe reading Homer's Iliad, or reading about Alexander, or going to a museum, or picking up a specialist factual actual history book about the period. So I am all for every possible way of getting the ancient world in front of people's eyes, hoping that will then kind of alive and wake them up to the wonders of the ancient world, get them excited, get them interested, and then getting them wanting to know more. So I would always be on the side of let's have as many Hollywood movies as we can, and I think we do supposedly in the pipeline going to have quite a few more. So they've been talking for a long time about making an Odyssey, an Odysseus. That would be amazing. But we also know that Disney has earmarked Disney's Hercules, for being made into a real film, out of a cartoon and into a real film. So I think that's brilliant. And Rebecca, I think absolutely you agree with me. I think it helps. It fosters interest and sparks the imagination. Absolutely. Now, there's always going to be people, and I'm one of those, we sit there kind of in the audience going, tut, 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 they've got that wrong or that wrong. And there's a very interesting set of discussions around Gladiator when it came out back in 2000, and the specialist advisor that Gladiator had for the film. And Catherine Coleman, has written quite a lot about what you can do and what you can't do as a specialist advisor to one of these big Hollywood films in terms of correcting things, and in other cases when just no one's interested in listening to you. And if it's in minor details in terms of clothing, or in terms of just making sure that you've got the handshake right sometimes, etc., that kind of stuff, you can obviously have an impact and make it more true to life. But actually in terms of the big emotional storyline and journey of the film, in terms of how the film has to turn and work as a sort of blockbuster success, it's very, very hard, and rightly so, I think, in some ways, to get the directors to stick to what we think might be the real story. And in many ways, actually, that is just continuing the great traditions of myth itself, dating back to the ancient world. Mythical stories that were turned into all the ancient Greek tragedies, and then into some of the Roman tragedies, and of course retold in other Roman poets like Ovid, etc. None of them kept to a story. There wasn't a story. The whole point about the myth was that it was alive, and it could continue to morph and change in the details of the story. Each poet, each playwright morphed and recalibrated and retold and refashioned the story to make a particular point and to have a particular dramatic effect. So in that sense, I think we're just carrying on very much in that tradition. Julie Maskell, can very young children be introduced to ancient history? Yes, I think they can, and they should be. There's a good reason that the Romans and the Egyptians are there in the Key Stage 2 curriculum. They're absolutely fascinating and fun and weird and different. And I think the more children are exposed to and kind of introduced to different cultures doing things in different ways, the more that kind of factors into their own thinking about how they relate to everyone around them. So, Clive, thank you so much indeed for that. We may not like the movie Troy or the movie Alexander, but we certainly, I think, shouldn't turn our noses up at it as people who want to spread the love for the ancient world far and wide. Right, now we have to take a quick break in the questions because we've had lots of kind of what's new coming in. Roman villas, a building site, have been found at the Corby Housing Estate, Priors Hall Park in Corby. It's going to be absolutely brilliant. Going to find out some more from that. There's been a whole blend of AI and art to conjure up eerily detailed photographic portraits of Roman emperors. So they've turned Nero, that we see in statues, you can see bust heads of Nero all the time, all of this sort of thing, but they've made colorized photorealistic portraits of Nero and 53 other emperors from the Principate. Nero, it turns out, and I don't think he's going to like this, looks a bit like an evil Ed Sheeran. So I don't know how much Ed Sheeran's going to enjoy that comparison, or indeed whether Nero would really want to be compared to Ed Sheeran. Actually, yes, I think Nero would, wouldn't he? With his artistic and his musical desires to be renowned as the best musician and the best artist around. This is the guy, after all, Nero, who went to the Olympic Games and supposedly won every event he participated in, turned up at the Delphic Games and entered all the musical competitions and tried to be kind of the best musician around as well. So I think Nero probably would like being compared to Ed Sheeran. Absolutely brilliant. And then from The Guardian, scans peek beneath wrappings of ancient mummified animals. So we were talking about pets. And in ancient Egypt as well, they seem to have been mummifying animals. Birds, crocodiles, lions, beetles. They had a penchant for mummifying animals. Some were pets, buried with their owners. Not sure about the crocodiles, but millions of animals were killed and mummified as votive offerings to the gods. Kind of, here you go, gods, have a mummified lion, why don't you? And this has been using a new non-invasive 3D imaging technique, a sort of X-ray microscope, if you like, to be able to look inside the wrappings without actually having to unravel them and thus see what's inside, which allows us, of course, to know so much more without damaging the original product. There's lots of great resources new resources available on YouTube as well. A couple that we have put forward, obviously, on the Warwick Classics Network site, which is warwick.ac.uk/WCN, where we're building up a massive bank of resources for teaching young people of all ages about the ancient world. So do go and check out some of those resources there. There's some new GCSE videos available on the Battle of Salamis, Plataea, and others. Other couple of podcasts have come out to flag to you as well. Killing Time with Rebecca Ridial. She's been talking to Dr. Maria Pretzler about the untimely death of Alexander, and the History Extra Paul Cartledge, who we all know and love so well, has done a two-parter about everything you ever wanted to know about ancient Greece but were too afraid to ask. If you've got a book recommendation, please let us know on the Facebook page always about books that you've been reading and that you'd like to share with everyone. For me, I would like to recommend Michael Wood's new The Story of China, Portrait of a Civilization and Its People. Absolutely brilliant to see China being brought more into the mainstream here in terms of our discussions of antiquity and its connections with Asia and through into the Mediterranean as well. So definitely have a think about that. In terms of events coming up, a couple of things I wanted to flag to you. I'm going to be talking at the Gloucestershire History Festival online. It's going to be a virtual festival on the 14th of September, 8 to 9 p.m, so a little bit after the kids' bedtime. And I'm going to be doing a live discussion with Nina Ramirez, and we're going to be talking about the explorers and discoverers of the ancient world. So very much hope you can join us for that. The Lytham St Anne's Classical Association, which I'm very, very proud and lucky to be president of, has just announced its programme for the year, and we're going to be doing virtual kind of online lectures up through until January. So you have to be a member of the Lytham St Anne's Classical Association to get access to that. But then from January, and I'm going to be going up in January to do my presidential lecture, we're very much hoping to do these lectures live back in the room again. But in the meantime, this autumn, we've got Polly Lowe talking about the Battle of Thermopylae, Llewellyn Morgan talking about Hercules, and then I'm going to be kicking off about democratic Athens in January. So do have a look at the programme, get involved if you are anywhere in the area, join up and enjoy the lectures online. And then actually on the 1st of September, we've been talking a little bit about Hagia Sophia, the church, church, mosque, museum, now mosque again in Istanbul, and thinking about the history of this extraordinary building and the very recent decision to make it an active mosque once again. There's going to be a Zoom webinar about Hagia Sophia, the history of the building, on the 1st of September. And this is run by Dumbarton Oaks in the US from 11 to 12:30 Eastern Standard Time, which is 4 to 5:30 here in the UK. If you're interested in disruptive traditions and how COVID is going to start impacting on urban planning, urban development, but also thinking about archaeology, heritage, culture, museums, then I want to flag another event with you, which is coming up on Saturday, the 5th of September, and we'll put up details about this online on the Facebook page, that I will be speaking at as part of a virtual symposium in the afternoon, 3 to 5:30 here in the UK, on Saturday, the 5th of September. There'll be a series of discussants talking about how they feel that the disruptive nature of COVID is going to change the traditions, particularly when it comes to thinking about the urban environment, how we incorporate heritage and our past within that going forward. So do please, if you can, join us for that and sign up for that in advance, so that we can, and there'll be lots of chance for you to ask your questions as part of that seminar to the panelists as well. Rebecca Louise, can you join in if you don't live in the area for the Lytham St Anne's Classical Association? Yes, you need to become a member, very tiny membership price, but then you'll be able to join in with the virtual lectures. And what we will probably be doing, even when we have lectures in person from January onwards, is broadcasting those live as well for those who aren't able to get to us, who are shielding for one reason or another. So please do get in touch with the LSA Classics community, and they will be able to sort you out. Right, have we got time for a couple more questions? Yes, we have. We have indeed. Now, there was a question I wanted to flag here from Sarah Scotty, because I think it really speaks to something, and to many of you perhaps that are listening at the moment. There's a lot of kids who have been going through pretty awful couple of weeks in relation to their results, and particularly, of course, to A-level results, and then, of course, to the withholding of the BTEC results, and thinking through to GCSE results as well that have come through. Now, my heart goes out to you all, because you've been working very hard. You've been trying to adapt to this new and weird world that we live in this year, and to the teachers who have been putting in so much work, putting together your grade reports and trying to make really balanced decisions about your results. And then to have the initial, in many cases, disappointment about what the algorithm decided to do with those results, and then of course to have gone through that turbulent process of trying to find your university place and through clearing, but then only to be told that actually you were going to get the results that your teachers thought you should have got in the first place, and have to, in many cases, then go through another period of uncertainty, working with the universities to try and work out what best to do. So I wanted to offer my thanks and sort of heartfelt best wishes to you all, to the students, to the teachers, and to the university admissions offices that have really had been up against it over the last couple of weeks to be able to make the best of this season. Now, I hope very much that all of you have found the places in the different university courses that you wanted. But what the most important thing, and this was coming out lots on Twitter at the time, is that it is not by any means the end of the world if you didn't get the university place you wanted, or indeed the grades that you wanted. Everything is up for grabs about what you want to do next. Willow kind of joining us here, who's kind of now with us at Classics at Warwick, talking about how if you had been in the same boat, things would have been so different. Kind of thank you very much. This is so important that we make sure that young people going forward are not blighted by this difficult period of COVID and lockdown for any longer than absolutely necessary. And I would just like to say, Sarah's asking if there's any advice I have. I would just like to say, never ever give up on what it is you want to accomplish. Right? And if it has turned out to be a setback for any reason, it is only a momentary setback. Everything is still out there to be grabbed if you want it. So pursue your dreams, and don't let anyone else tell you otherwise. Our time is coming to an end, but we do probably have time for one more little question. Vivian Anthrak has asked curious about music in the ancient world. So I would recommend, Vivian, absolutely, for music in the ancient world, particularly the ancient Mediterranean world, you can't find any better expert than Armand d'Angor, who is based here at Oxford, but who has put together a whole brilliant series of YouTube videos where there's actually a community that's come together to play what we think is ancient music as best we can understand it and recreate it using replica ancient instruments. So do go and have a look at those YouTube videos, and you can hear the somewhat odd sounds of ancient music. Mamouchi Frol has asked about what's my favourite archaeological site, and this is something I want to throw to you guys. So we've talked about different archaeological sites and places that we'd like to talk about, but do you have an absolute favourite? Tell us over the Facebook page this week, what is your favourite archaeological site, and of course why? For me, it's so many, but it's probably Delos in the Mediterranean, as I had the very, very fortunate opportunity to be able to actually stay on Delos. Normally people can't stay overnight on Delos, but because I was working with the excavation team, I was able to stay overnight for a week and see sunset on an otherwise pretty much deserted island full of the ruined temples, and then secretly have a walk through the Temple of Apollo in the moonlight. Don't tell anyone. Kind of that was an absolutely wonderful kind of moment. As a result, pretty much my favourite site around. But let us know what you are. Knossos, says Gordon. Delphi, says Alexis. Absolutely, keep them rolling in. Big or small. Sometimes they're out the way. Sometimes it's a little place that affects you much more than a big place. Sometimes it's something that you didn't even know was there and you stumble on it, and it's that kind of complete unknown magical discovery that you feel you've made of an ancient community, perhaps not even a very important one, just a small little local community that went about its business, but somehow you feel a connection to a place. Tell us what that is, tell us why, let us know, and we'll talk about it next time we come together. We've got loads more questions to answer, but I'm so sorry we haven't had a chance to get to them. We will indeed soon enough. So next time is going to be 10th of September. I hope very much that you can join us then. We're going to go for 5 p.m. again, so we're going to try out this time, slightly later time. Let us know also over the Facebook page what you think about doing things at 5 p.m. UK time, whether that's working for you wherever you are around the world. We want to try and find the right time for as many people to join in as possible, so do let us know. You can always get in touch, of course, through the Facebook page, facebook.com/Prof Michael Scott, or through the email address michaelscottacademic@gmail.com, and we're very much looking forward to hearing from you. So in the meantime, stay safe, stay well. I'll see you on the 10th of September, 5 p.m. Good luck with those first school runs and those first school days for little ones starting school, or with everyone else going back to school, we hope, in pretty much as normal as possible conditions going forward, and we'll see you all soon. Take care.